Hi, this is Anne DeMarie. Welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to talk with you about children who have speech impediments. I have 6 living children, and 5 of my 6 have had speech impediments. And I've noticed that I homeschool, in my homeschooling communities and circles that I've been among, a lot of the children have speech impediments as well. But the difference between my children and, say, other families that I've been around for many years is that I have tried to correct the speech impediment, and I've noticed that a lot of other homeschooling families haven't. And so I have heard kids in their high school years continue to have speech impediments into their 20s and just have these speech impediments. And honestly, I feel really bad for those kids because it's awkward and it makes it harder for them, I think, as they get into their adult years and teenage years, where people might frown upon it. It sounds very juvenile. It doesn't sound very professional when you speak with a speech impediment. And so I'm not trying to shame people who don't do this, but what I'm trying to do is to kind of give parents who have children with these issues tools that they can use on their own to actually fix this. And it's actually not that hard to do it if you just know the resources and tap into them. We did do, for a few of my children anyway, some speech therapy. And when I would go to their sessions and I would sit in and see what they were doing, I thought to myself, well, that's something that I could do. They don't need to be, charging me copays of $40 a pop, to come in here once every week. So what I did was mirrored them. And I went online, and there are some really excellent websites. One in particular that I would go to is called Home Speech Home. And there would be lists and lists of all kinds of, speech impediments that the child would have. So they would have, I'll show you in a moment here. Something like this, where you'd have just a list of all these different words. This would be for the child who had struggled with the S, where they didn't know where to put the S sound properly. So we'd have to work on the positioning of their tongue. And over time, you just have them repeating all these lists, words. There could be an initial S word, a middle S word, and a final S word. And you would just have them say it, and you could sometimes eventually build up and have them say it in a sentence and then repeat the sentence. And the more that they practiced using that sound, again, trying to show them where to put the tongue properly, that eventually everybody's resolved itself. And their tongue kind of had muscle memory kicked in, and to this point in time, all my kids have remedied their speech impediments. And so another thing that you could do for your younger kids, because usually this is for younger kids, when you want to get started, because it's harder when they get older. They can fix it, but it's just when they're young, their brains are more adaptable to change. So you could also, as opposed to just reading list words one after the next, that gets a little bit mundane and boring for them, you can play a game. And they did this in every therapy session that I went to, is they would have choose a game the child likes, whether it's Candyland or Chutes and Ladders or whatever it might be. And you would take a couple turns, and then they'd say some of the letter sounds, say the words, and then, have another turn and then say some more words. And they loved it. They absolutely loved it. And so I would do this with my children, and, just making fun of something that they making it playful is what I'm trying to say. And they really loved it. And so sometimes, at the end, they'd give her a lollipop, really, top it off. And she would look forward to it all the time because it was playful. It was not that hard, just, repetition, practicing the positioning of the tongue. And you do have to, if they make the wrong sound, you have to correct them and show them what to do. Then, just keep going doing this. And I promise you, if you are consistent, their speech issue will eventually resolve. So anyhow, I just have, like I said, noticed a lot of homeschoolers, and it's typically homeschoolers. It's almost always homeschoolers. I don't know why, but the kids who go to private schools and public schools don't seem to have this problem. I can't explain it, but it does drive me a little bit crazy. And I just feel so bad for those families who have children who grow up to have sort of that speech handicap. And as somebody who really believes in having good oration and enunciation and diction, in my own children and encouraging that in them, I also want to kind of extend that to my larger audience and just tell you, like, you can do it as long as you have patience. And, if you don't know where the tongue positionings are for, if it's an R or an S or an L, we've worked with all those letters. TH was also an issue. There's wonderful YouTube channels out there that just show you exactly where the tongue needs to be. And you can probably figure it out on your own. You just don't think about it because you've been doing this most of your life, right? But if you don't notice where your tongue is when you do this, just go online and look it up because it's right there. It's very, very simple. So I hope that you can take that and maybe use it and help your child to have more confidence in themselves as they get older, since their speech won't draw unnecessary negative attention to them. So, all right, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.